Hey, your heads up to this longer podcast. Yeah, it's a touch of the bleeding obvious, but it is also me just giving you the heads up to an aha moment that I had. It was an epiphany, and it was something that happened when I was working with a client and I just didn't know what to do. And what happened was, well, it changed the way I work with clients forever. But also, I've looked at a way we could use what I learned into a way of where we can respond to things like criticism, or where we behave in a way we don't want to behave. We're triggered into maybe such as anger and things like that. This may help as well. So please go all the way through the podcast. You'll really enjoy it. I'm sure there's a golden nugget for you. Okay, so have a listen after this.
Warning.
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 Warning. You are entering into the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. Too late. Personal Development Unplugged.
So we're back again, the two of us, just to have a little chat. And I wanted to tell you a story. And this story hopefully leads to the underlying theme of a touch of the bleeding obvious. We'll get there and see if we can get that theme to be something that we can use. You see, I remember this time I'm going to tell you about very, very vividly. I was back in Cambridge, and in my little clinic, which was attached to the side of my house, sitting down, got a lovely chair, so comfortable in my chair, and the client was comfortable in their chair, and the nice music was going on in the background, to have a little bit of music just to make everyone feel comfortable, me feel comfortable, they feel comfortable. And I was doing my bit where I was just talking to the client, working out a little bit of their personal history about the issue, and getting to the point where I wanted to introduce the process that I thought we were going to use. You see, in those days, when I used to talk to a client about their problems to start off with, I would then think about the process I was going to use. And I'd be thinking, that's this one and that one. Anyway, I'm going and talking with this client, and things aren't going according to that particular plan. Because the things I'd been thinking about, were no longer appropriate. Now, can you imagine having a set plan? You know exactly what you're going to do. And then you realise that set plan is not going to work. In fact, you just know it's not going to work. But you've put everything into and thinking and thoughts into this plan. What the hell are you going to do? I had a problem. Imagine my client is in front of me. We're getting to that point, and I'm thinking to myself, I really do not know what to do. I don't know what to ask. I don't know what process I should be using. I was completely flummoxed. And inside, I was doing 10 to the dozen. I was trying to keep a comfortable facade, as it were. A confident facade. But inside, I was totally unconfident. And I just said to myself, and I swore, what the fuck am I going to do? What the fuck am I going to do? Come on, Cloughie. I don't know. And just as I said that, a question came out of my mouth. And I didn't thought about it. It was if, and I love doing this now, it was if I was listening to me asking that question, as if I was sitting in that meta view, we call it, looking down on me and my client. And I said to myself, that's a damn fine question, Cloughie. You've come out with a blinder. And this question got an answer, and it was if, by magic. And I know it wasn't magic. It was magical inside to me, and it was a bloody relief as well, because a process in my mind came to my mind, and we just did it. And it wasn't the process I was thinking about, and it wasn't a process I knew as such, because it happened to be a blend of a number of different processes that I knew. And it just seemed to flow. It was really weird. And again, it was if I was this viewer, just watching, a bystander, watching the magic happen in front of me and seeing me perform magically. And the result was magical. Okay, nothing magic about it. We got to the result. The client did all the work, but I found that process that came out of me by asking, I wonder what I should do now, and being open. And what I really did was I just trusted myself. There was no one else there to trust, really. And I just trusted myself. There's an answer here somewhere. And I think that it's always stuck with me to say, well, I don't want to know. I don't want to think about the right thing to do straight away. I've got an idea where we're going. I know the result I want, but the actual steps along the way, I'm not quite sure of. And I don't want to be sure of, because if I have this plan set in stone, if something comes on and knocks me off kilter, or if I hadn't quite thought about it right, which I hadn't done in that particular case, I wouldn't have had that wonderful learning to say, "Oi, Cluffy, just relax and just trust yourself. Ask the right questions inside, the answers will come." And that's all it was. It was about me asking the right questions and listening and just going for it in a, in that nice considered way. But by trusting myself to be myself, it just happened. Now, I also love working with other coaches, trainers, and other therapists. But at first, I used to be really intimidated by them. Because, when you think about it, you get that imposter syndrome. You ask those silly questions inside your head. Who am I? Who am I to be working with you? What do I know? You probably know more than me. I'm sure you know more. Well, in fact, I know nothing. And there's all those stupid bloody questions. But then I found out, using this same easy trust, that I'll just go into the zone. I'll go into that zone, and it's as if I made some notes. I thought, well, what is that zone? And it becomes, I'm the hypnotist. I'm the lifesaver. I know that's bigging it up too much, but that's what I say to people. I say, what do you do? Oh, I save lives. Yeah, it's just make things a little bit serious fun, I call it. Having fun, but being serious about it. But I go into that, I'm the hypnotist zone. I am the lifesaver zone. I am going to get the result zone. And I trust and ask, what is the next right question? And they always come. They just always come. You remember that story I just said? I just trust now. I just trust. I never have a plan in mind other than the result. And I can even remember that there was a trainer I worked with, an LP trainer like myself. So they knew exactly what I knew. Well, sort of exactly. You never know exactly. And she had this fear. And she said, I've done everything, so I want you to help me. Now, that's a bit of pressure, isn't it? I've done everything. And I'm thinking, you must know lots because you're a trainer. But we all train in different ways, and our interests steer us in different specialities of NLP and hypnosis. And I thought, well, and when she said, well, I've done this, I've done this, and done this, and done this, I thought, bloody hell, I wonder what's left. But I thought, well, no, you haven't done everything. Because if you had done everything, you'd have found the answer, and that fear would have disappeared. Because we all know there's that positive intention of fear to keep you safe, and if it's not working because it's scaring the living daylights out of you, that is a conflict. And conflicts can't happen when you understand it, so we just need to learn from it. And I thought, well, I got in this it was like déjà vu. I often wonder, what do the French say for déjà vu? Hey, that's an aside, and it's not a very good joke. But the thing is, again, I just trusted. And a process came into my mind that I'd never really done. I'd seen it done before. And I wasn't quite sure whether, does it really work? Had I only seen like the creme de la creme of that particular process. And I thought, well, bugger it. I'm going for it. Because that's the thing that's in my mind. I'm going to trust. And guess what? You know the answer, don't you? Boom! The results just flew through the door. We got there, and it was absolutely marvellous. And guess what she said to me at the end? She said, it's all gone, but I've never done that before, like that. It was awesome experience, Paul. Thank you so much. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I am the hypnotist. I'm the lifesaver, because you've done everything. You've met every other people or every other type of trainer and therapist to do work on. And I got there because I trusted in me and I trusted in her to do the right thing. Similar thing happened to just the other month. I was working with a master trainer. I'm not quite sure what master trainers are, but a master trainer. And it actually spurred me on this time. So instead of having imposter syndrome, I thought, hey, let's just really trust and see what happens this time. See if is this process I'm using the real deal? And we started talking and sort of going there. But we were a little bit of a stalemate, I guess, because again, we've done so many things. If you know a lot of stuff and you do the stuff, but I had this one thing. Well, it just came to mind. A sentence came up, and it was as if my unconscious mind zeroed in, and I just asked this one particular question about a state. And I just said, oh, you just mentioned so-and-so. And if you had that state, what would happen if you had that state over here in this particular issue you talk about? Well, the issue wouldn't happen. Or what would happen if you had that state when you did your work over here in a different context? Well, the work would be awesome, wouldn't it? It'd be better than ever. So let's work out and would it be okay to have that state in those places, both places? Absolutely, and more, Paul. Let's generalize it. And it was, again, something someone had worked on for years. And the thing is, both of them, I guess, were this thing of touch of the bleeding obvious when we got there, but just trusting you can do it, trusting the bleeding obvious will come. But why is it the bleeding obvious? Now, you could say the only reason it came like that, Paul, is because you're so good. You are the hypnotist. You are the lifesaver. Now, I'd like to think so, but that's not really the real reason, is it? It helps a little bit to practice a lot, but the real thing is, one of the things is the trust, but also that I'm not attached to the issue. I'm looking in, which is a little bit like when you go back to the front of my story was, as if I was looking down at me being the therapist, at them being the client, and I was guiding me over there to say the right things. That's what it felt like anyway. So I'm not attached to the issue. And if you're not attached to the issue and looking in, you're able to see that bleeding obvious sometimes. You're able to ask that question because you're not emotionally attached. And also, when you ask those type of questions, when you do it with rapport, with a genuine curiosity, with a genuine intention of getting the result that your client wants, they can't dodge the issue. You won't let them off the hook in a nice way. And when you don't let them off the hook in a nice way, because you ask that one question that they may not have wanted to answer, because when you answer that question, you realize you have the issue or you haven't let go of the issue. And it's so much easier that way. I mean, if you think about it, and this is where I'm going with some of this, is obviously if you've got issues that you want to deal with and you need someone to do that for you, then one-to-one therapy. Always say that. Go and find somebody who can do NLP, hypnosis, timeline therapy, and has that, boom, that trust in himself or herself with the positive intention of getting the result for you, getting you to get your result as quick as possible. That, to me, is paramount. Not one of these things where it'll be years. Quick as possible in the smallest amount of sessions possible. But anyway, I always say that. And if you really want to find about what to look for, just hike back through the past catalogue and have a look to see that I did an episode of what to look for in a therapist. Right, that's beside the point now. You know that. But you can do it for other things. You don't have to have the biggest issues in the world. I mean, would it be okay for you to play with me in looking at maybe a minor issue and using these skills, using this way of trusting yourself and looking in at the problem and notice what happens? Would that be okay? I mean, it'd be pretty important, wouldn't it, to, if you could have a skill that you could learn pretty quickly, and you know that it's pretty easy because we only do the easy stuff. Not easy, well, it is easy, but it's simple steps in that, because in simplicity there's genius. They are pretty easy. They just need the gumption, the oomph, to the will to do whatever it takes. And we've all got that. I know you've got it in bucket loads. So why don't you play with me for a moment, if that's okay? Now, again, it might be easy when you do this to close your eyes. Not yet. So if that's okay, and you want to play with me that way, and you close your eyes, just make sure everything is fine. You're not having to be in control of anything. Notice where you're walking. You're obviously not driving or anything like that. Just sit down, find a quiet place. If you're disturbed by it, by people coming in and out, you can always come back to it. It's not a problem. Not hypnosis, what we're going to do. Obviously, if you're driving that, you come back to it, but you can just play it in your mind anyway to get an idea of the process itself. So either way, you can do this. So I want you to imagine an issue. Or don't imagine an issue, but you have an issue that we can recall. Sorry about that. Me giving you loads more issues than you never had. We don't want to do that. Now, I'm thinking something like responding to criticism or a comment or something that maybe just triggers off anger. I know I have that. Sometimes, I'll say that again, get my teeth in. Sometimes people will say something to me, and instead of responding in the most wonderful, calm way, saying, okay, what data, what information are you basing that on? Let's get specific and tell me what you're trying to do. No, boom, I bite the heads off. Now, why would you do that? What would be the positive intention? Well, I'm guessing it's like, I don't want to get hurt by this. I'm protecting myself from criticism. I don't want to hear that. It doesn't feel good. Is there a conflict in that? Absolutely, because it makes the situation worse. It makes me go away and keep thinking about it, how bad it was. And there's a belief maybe that maybe people are, these type of things are hurtful. Or maybe there's a belief about what the imposter syndrome, or I'll get found out. And there's certainly the emotion of anger and things like that. And then there'll be a little bit of remorse or a little bit of grief or guilt in like an aftershock. So to be honest, that behavior, that response is no longer appropriate. It may have been once a long time ago. But hey, what would happen if we just played with that to get an idea? We know now there's always a positive intention behind every behavior. But is there a better way? Well, when it comes to things like that, acting with anger, biting people's heads off and things like that, yeah, there's got to be a better way. Because for one thing, it doesn't resolve anything. It just causes more problems, especially if they're people with you love and things like that. So what I want you to do is just think of that time. If you could recall a time in the past where we've all had this type of thing. So maybe think of one specific time, not two. I don't want generalized. We generalize later. We've already generalized this behavior into different contexts, but I want to take one particular context, one memory. And I just want you to just remember it as if you were looking in your own eye, through your own eyes, back there in that memory. And as you do that, it's just a matter of making sure that when you feel the emotion, yeah, this is the emotion I'm working on. This is a behavior I'm working on. We have to go to the place where this is it. We're telling our unconscious mind, this is the thing that's no longer working for us. Thank you very much, but it's no longer working for us. Now, and this is where we trust ourselves. It's all to do with trusting yourself and trusting yourself to find the answers and confident that change is possible. If you have the positive intention that change is possible and you know this isn't working, you know you're going to find that change because you trust yourself. There's a circle there. So as you do that, you might want to go, well, only to find the intention, I'm going to now float into that other person, just briefly. And if you could imagine them in front of you, now floating into them, looking through their eyes, back at you, listening to the words that you're saying to you, because you're them now. And just ask yourself, what is the intention behind this question? It may not be communicated in the way that's the nicest way, but that's an issue with communication. If it was communicated properly, what is that intention? If it was a criticism, what is the intention of giving you that criticism? Because we know it's positive. Now, it might be only positive for them, and it'll certainly be that. It might not be positive for you. Because remember, the positive intention is for us. So for them, being them, so maybe they're defending themselves. Maybe they're unconfident about something. Maybe they're guilty about something, and it's their reaction. Just get a sense of it, because you will get a sense. And just trust. And just ask the question, what is a sense of this positive intention I'm getting right now? Maybe what's the belief I have here right now that is creating this communication? Maybe there's an emotion there, because sometimes you might even notice there's emotion there where they are maybe a little fearful themselves. Maybe they're anxious. And then when you've just got that, take a little inventory of it, only as much as it's healthy to do so and safe to do so, and then just float back into yourself. So you're now back in that memory, as it were, but we've freeze-framed. We're not going through the memory again, we've just stopped. So you can just see the other person in front of you. Now, you've got a slight inventory there, because if you notice, if they have a negative emotion, then that negative emotion will create bad communication, whether it's, that unconscious communication, non-verbal communication, the way they use their body, the tone of their voice, things like that. Not necessarily just the words, or it could create those words as well, which it does. And you maybe got a feeling of how they're feeling. Now, what would happen if you did what I did? Just float away from the both of you, just for this moment, and see yourself down there reacting to that other criticism or the words that were said. Just imagine that floating up above, getting this meta view. Because it's good to get another view on things, isn't it? A different perspective. And again, trust yourself and ask, what can I learn from that down there? Those two people, that me down there and that other person. What can I learn from this, from up here, from this dissociated place? It's as if I'm a director of a movie, as it were. I can get information, I can see what's happening, I can give information if I wanted to. So what can I learn from this? And taking it a little deeper, and notice what comes up. And this is again, you know that change is possible, you know you're confident in that. You know you've got the positive intention to make things better, to let go of this conflict that you've got down there. Just say, well, with this understanding, this learning that I have, even if I might not consciously be aware of it up here, what advice would I give myself down there? What advice would I give to make that situation better, to make me understand a different behavior, a different response? And just notice what happens. You may get words, you may just get an understanding. You might just get an awareness, a sense of that answer. And as you get any of that, you can imagine beaming it down to that you down there. And as you beam it down to that you down there, from up here, imagine that memory happening that way. If it was to happen the way that you've just given that advice, and that you down there was to act in the way that advice you've just given, with that positive intention of keeping you comfortable, keeping you safe. So we haven't changed the intention, we've changed the behavior, we've changed the emotion. So you could tell that you down there to access a different emotion, maybe be more relaxed, maybe to be a little bit more curious, a bit more connected, maybe a bit more aware, maybe a bit more quiet. I don't know. Notice the physiology you could give advice on. Maybe you should be a bit more relaxed. Maybe you should just use a quieter tone, maybe a louder tone. Who knows? But you just sense it. And as you sense it, direct, as it were, that movie down there. And notice how much better it would have been if you'd have had that understanding now, back then. But the thing is, the whole point of this is, you didn't back then have this understanding. But now you've used it. You've used that situation and you've learned from it. And having learned from it and notice all the different ways you could have done it differently to get a better result, is as if your unconscious mind is going to say, well, actually, in the future, when that old trigger that would have set off that old state of that anger, that sharp retort, that trigger is now going to trigger off this type of behavior, or the most appropriate behavior to get this intention, that tone of voice, that physiology, because you know you're trusting yourself. And maybe you're just going to send down that trust to that you down there, to trust you will access the most appropriate new way. And the thing is, when you see that all the different permutations that you could have used, this is the big thing. Yes, you didn't use it back in the past, but that's okay because we've now learnt from it. So now the old emotion can disappear from that because you've learnt from it. We don't need that old reaction now because you've learnt from it. But let's do it and get it synced in, because we talked about generalization. We've generalized this in the past, and now I want to generalize the better way. So I just want you to think, What would happen if you thought about something like this happening in the future, an unspecified time in the future? If it did happen, and in the past you'd have reacted in the old way, just notice how different it would be now, looking into the future now, acting in this new way, behaving in that new way, responding in that new way, reacting in this new way, and noticing that you out there learning from this new way. And then think of another time in an unspecified time in the future, where if something in another context, where in the past, if it happened in the past, you would have acted in the old way, but now you're acting in a different way because you're accessing all these new resources, keeping the intention, so you're letting go of the conflict, but most of all, that you out there in the future is trusting you and your unconscious mind. Now, you could do this another couple of times. So just think of another time in the future that is something differently in another context. If that had happened in the past, you'd have acted in the old way, but this time you're acting in a different way, a much better way. And notice how your unconscious mind can learn from this. Because now we're generalizing it into better or other areas of your life to act in a way that is now congruent with that positive intention. All coming from getting another view, a different perspective on the problem, but having the confidence in yourself to make this change. Knowing that change is always possible in a bloody instant, and because you've got the right intention. And when you have the right intention, you can move mountains. You will find the way because you trust. Put it all together, and it just keeps getting better and better. Now, why is this important to do this? Well, it just takes away that old way, because we learn, and it just lets go of the conflict. And you just know by doing this, you're going to be able to do more of better things. And when you look back at that problem now, I bet you have a flash of the bleeding obvious. Oh, now I see what I was doing. Oh, now I was seeing how I could respond differently. Oh, it's so obvious to me. It is now from this other position. Yes, I just want you to, I made some notes. How do I want you to feel? And the biggest one is just to trust yourself. Just as I learned in that very early time as being a therapist, when I trust myself, I know I'm going to find the right way. That's it. It's nailed on. Therefore, and I have the intention of being that. I just know my client is going to change. I just know I'm going to be around with them, or like them, the process to do it. I'm going to be part of this magic of change, even though it's not magic, it's just magical. And I've got the right intention, and I know it's going to happen. So just like you, were you trusting yourself, knowing where you want to go, knowing that you can be confident that you're going to find the answer. Know you got the answers inside you. All you have to do is trust, knowing that change is possible in an instant. You can then think, what else could I do? What else could I improve? How else could I speed up getting those goals? How could I develop myself into the best me? Maybe for sometimes it's the old you want back again. Well, I want the old you and more. See, I want the old you without the problems. That's what I want for you. So you're the real you. That used to be my problem. I always wanted the old Paul back. When I had issues, very bad issues at one time, or one particular issue which was very bad, I came out of it and I really wanted the old Paul back, because the old Paul now the old Paul was part of the old problem. The real Paul, I just had to trust that the real Paul would come to the front again. And that's what I'm working on. And it's a continual work in progress. I'm going to be the hypnotist for me. I'm going to be my lifesaver. What are you going to be? How are you going to be? How would you describe your trust in you? Go back to that. How would you talk to your unconscious mind in a nice way, obviously? What would you call yourself? What is the name of your unconscious mind? We've gone all through these things. You've got all the tools at your disposal here in this podcast. Not that this podcast being all the episodes. You can go back. We've got 450 odd episodes now, I think. You've got all the hypnosis tracks, and there'll be more. You've got the opportunity, if you wish, to email me, ask me a question, set me a problem to find the answer to. How do you do that? Well, you do it to the lifesaver, the hypnotist. No, you don't. You can put that in the subject title. That'll make me laugh. But it's to feedback at personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. Subject, the hypnotist, lifesaver. No. But it will make me laugh and it'll make me smile. And it made me smile just thinking about it now. I mean, even my friends, when I go out with my friends in an evening, we're going for a drink or something, they'll always say, hey, Paul, how many lives did you save today? Well, just the odd one or two. But it's a lovely joke, but it does reflect what you do. You save your own life in a way that you're going to create your own life the way you want it. You're going to create your own reality by getting rid of these conflicts and finding that you have the resources you want anyway. So that was it, really. All from a touch of the bleeding obvious. And it is so obvious. And it is so simple. Can't be this easy, Paul, can it? Yes, it is. When you do it with the right intention, when you do it with the right trust, we come back to the same circle over and over again. So please do that. If you think your issue is too big or you want it resolved really quickly, please do go one-to-one. You can even work with me, but this is not a push for that, but just a little bit. But find somebody to help you. There is no need to stick in something you don't like. And that's the old behaviors, the old negative emotions and the old negative beliefs. Please do that. You know, we've got about a week or so left for I've got 50% discount on all my programs at paulcloughonline.com. Just go to I can't even remember I think it's paulcloughonline.com/sale. Sure it is. And there's a 50% discount on everything. Plus there's a money back guarantee. So I've even reduced that, and because you're a listener to the Personal Development Unplugged podcast, if you don't like it, if it's not working for you, just let me know. Boom, I'll send you money back. No problem. So what have you got to lose? Oh, you've only got to lose anxiety. You've only got to lose unconfidence. What have you got to lose? Low self-esteem. What have you got to lose? Tension, because there's some deep relaxation. Well, there's so many things. Go and have a look and just enjoy. Have a look at those. Please share this. Share this podcast all over the world. Let's make it the biggest little podcast in the world. And so people get the benefit to talk to us, to spread what we learn, and to share what we learn in a way that encourages others to trust themselves, because so many people don't. And also know there's those free hypnosis tracks. So obviously you've shared the podcast, because there's golden nuggets in there somewhere for you. I know there's a golden nugget. Share the podcast to everybody. Subscribe to it so you don't have to think about it. Then, hopefully, you should have signed up for the hypnosis tracks, the free 47 plus hypnosis tracks. They're all there for you. Go to paulcloughonline.com/podcast and you'll get access to those. And because you do that, I'm sort of developing a little bit of a newsletter. It's not bombarding you with anything like that, but just gives you an idea of what's happened, what is going to happen, and any new thoughts I have, what I'm going to be talking about. Maybe inviting you to come back with those questions. And so you can just reply to that email. Makes it even easier for you. All you have to do is reply. Anyway, that's it from me. There'll be no outro after this. It'll just be, it'll be this.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.